Okay, I need everybody to start by standing up. Alzatevi tutti insieme. Grazie, grazie. Please stand up, everybody. Yes, excellent. Okay, we're going to start. We're going to start, first of all, with a little bit of stretching. So everybody, please, one hand reach way up, reach to the sky. Oh, yeah, feel that stretch. Stretch. Okay, the other side. Reach the other side. Stretch. Stretch. Okay, and then here to the side. Stretch. Okay, the other side. Stretch. And the neck a little bit. The neck. Just a little bit. Okay, good. And then reach out your hand to a neighbor, a stranger. Shake their hand. Introduce yourself. Say hello. If you're inspired, you can give someone a hug. This is going to come in handy later as the next part of the talk. So really, say hello, introduce yourselves. Don't be shy. Okay, have a seat. So there are basically two approaches we have when choosing our life path and goals. We can either choose to set modest and low expectations for ourselves with a fairly high chance of achieving them, or we can set really high goals for ourselves. Aim for the stars. Of course, that may be a pretty decent risk of not achieving them. So what does it mean for you in your life, which choice you choose? And what does it mean for us, for our communities and cities, the countries and region and world that we live in, what we collectively choose? Now, first off, let me say there's no right or wrong choice here in this. People make this decision based on all sorts of life and personal circumstances. But how many people here think they set pretty modest goals for themselves in their lives? And how many people, okay, actually, please raise your hands. How many people think they set modest goals for themselves? It's okay. And how many people set really high, aim for the stars goals for themselves? Fantastic. Okay, we're going to come back to that in a bit. So right now we're going to come visit a city in the Mediterranean. It's well known for history and culture, trees and the birds. There's a wide river with boats floating by. Of course, I'm talking about this place. I mean, this place, because it's Cairo. It's a city of 22 million and a country of 83 million with quite high unemployment and also quite a few other challenges: air and water pollution, solid waste management, inadequate healthcare and education systems. So I started doing research and spending time in Cairo in 2007, and I look at it as a sort of microcosm for the region. Because some estimates say that about 75 million new jobs are needed in the region by 2020, which is a huge number, but it's even more daunting if you think that it's 40% more than all jobs that existed in the region in 2011. And this is just to maintain unemployment at the same level, which is already quite high. So let's look back at Cairo again. Let's say that about 1 million new jobs are needed in Cairo. It's probably more, but just for simplicity, let's say 1 million. If we create 1 million new jobs in Cairo that generate the same amount of air and water pollution or consume the same amount of energy or water as jobs that exist today, then even if we're able to avert catastrophe from massive unemployment, then we might push the city over the edge in terms of these other ecological issues. So it's not just that we need massive job creation. We need massive sustainable job creation. But actually, even sustainable jobs aren't enough, because while they have a net impact of 0 on the ecology, so they won't make things that much worse, they actually won't help things get that much better. So we actually need a massive number of sustainable social impact jobs. And while people are calling for a massive increase in jobs and entrepreneurship around the region to deal with this unemployment issue, I actually call for a massive increase in social entrepreneurship and social impact jobs. And I'm not doing this because I think this is a nice, warm, fuzzy thing to do. I'm doing this because I think this is a put on the sirens, DEFCON 2 kind of situation where we should act as if our lives depend on it, because in many places, they do. So where do millions of social impact jobs come from? Well, of course, they come from here. Okay, they don't actually come from there, but we can learn a lot from this place, because while Cairo was a hub for innovation and entrepreneurship 5,000 years ago, this place is a global hub for technology and innovation today. You might guess it, we're talking about Silicon Valley. So Silicon Valley is a great place. It's actually where I grew up. I spent most of my life there before I quit my work and moved back to Lebanon about 10 years ago. And it's an amazing place with lots of resources, great universities, companies, research labs, venture capital firms. You know, there's more investment in innovation and technology in Silicon Valley than the rest of the world combined. But the thing that often strikes me the most whenever I go back and visit Silicon Valley is how unremarkable it is. It's just a place. There's no magic potion there that makes it the global hub of technology. In fact, in many places, the internet's not very fast, and the cell phone service is spotty. Lots of people who drive innovation and technology and entrepreneurship forwards in Silicon Valley aren't even from there. They're from elsewhere in the world. They grew up, and they learned, and their creativity, their ingenuity came from elsewhere and then was imported to Silicon Valley. So while there are many things that make Silicon Valley what it is today, there are two factors that I think are often overlooked and underappreciated that help drive innovation and tech forwards there. And they're simultaneously easy to replicate and very hard to replicate. And I'm going to whisper them to you here today. It's that they are crazy believers and they support each other. So in much of the world, when people have an amazing new idea and then they want to go share it with people, they get all sorts of discouraging comments. Well, have you seen that succeed somewhere? How do you know it's not going to fail? All of these things are both discouraging, and if people have a really amazing, crazy new idea, they can actually even lose credibility. But with the crazy believers, when they hear a crazy new idea, they ask questions like, wow, what kind of help do you need? Have you thought of this? I really should introduce you to my friend. Well, what kind of support do you need? It's this kind of positive, stargazing, dream-do thinking that led to so many of the brands that shape our lives today. You know, 8 of the top 12 websites globally emerged from Silicon Valley, and 3 of the others have offices there. But at the same time, there were thousands and thousands of failures. But the failures we learn as much from as we do from the successes. And we don't dwell on the failures, just like we don't dwell on the 51 failures of a small startup out of Finland called Rovio, before their 52nd was an amazing success. Now imagine if Rovio's founders and partners and funders gave up after the 30th or 40th failure. First of all, they'd be out a whole lot of money, and they would have been out an opportunity to help contribute to reshaping the Finnish and the European economies. But as well, imagine how much darker the world would be without Angry Bird Yoda. So beyond being crazy believers, they also support each other, both in formal ways, where there's some sort of financial or equity participation, contribution, or in informal ways. There's a sort of pay-it-forward, positive approach to support where people feel like the more they support others without expectation of compensation, the more they will be supported without expectation of compensation. And that kind of support is really powerful. And when you combine these two together, it has an amazing impact. So imagine if we could push that same kind of dynamism, that energy, that stargazing and dream-do thinking, not just with technology and business, but dedicate it to social impact challenges around the world. Well, there are a couple projects that do that as well. And there are many others. These are just 2 of them. Singularity University, based out of Silicon Valley, and Unreasonable Institute, based out of Colorado. But Singularity is really one of my favorites. They have a really crazy approach. They bring people together from around the world to think about solutions to major global challenges. But the twist is that these solutions have to be able to solve this challenge for 1 billion people within only 10 years. And let me tell you, some of the ideas that people come up with really are nutty and ridiculous, and you know that they're not going to work. But again, we learn from the failures almost as much as we learn from the successes, and sometimes even more. And we only need a small number of these crazy ideas to be successful in the world for us to have an amazing, powerful impact. So coming back to these global brands, of course there have been positive impacts from many of them, even though they're just normal for-profit companies. But there are two of them that are dedicated wholly to a social impact mission, and they're actually nonprofits. Do you guys know which two? It's Mozilla and Wikipedia. These are two major global brands, but they're nonprofits. Imagine if we could have so much more of that sort of dynamism and energy around the world dedicated to social impact causes that all of these brands have, but dedicated to addressing global challenges. So in the region, in our region, of course we have great companies in Europe, Middle East, and Africa, and there are also great efforts to support social impact innovation. But just looking at the scale of the challenges that exist, we know that much more needs to be done. So there are 4 ingredients I want to suggest to help build a healthy social impact, social innovation ecosystem in our region. And they're probably the same now as they were 5,000 years ago. So some of these ingredients are helping to build this idea, this approach of stargazing and a dream-do attitude, starting from when people are kids in our schools, in our universities, in our homes, and in our companies. How can we encourage people to have amazing big ideas and then try them, even knowing that many of them will fail? But again, that's okay. We only need a small number of them to succeed, to do amazing things. We also need to be much more open and share much more. This is how we learn, how we iterate, how we evolve ideas, how we help things become much more competitive and impactful in the world. Our region is not a poor region. We have a lot of resources, both human capacity, financial, and otherwise, but not nearly enough of it is dedicated towards supporting the dream doers and their dream doing. Even if they're high risk and we know that many are going to fail, we need to be able to support them, to activate them, and help them build things and try them out. And of course, there's one more special ingredient. But I think maybe by now, you guys know what this is. Because it's you, and it's me, and it's all these number 2s who are going to drive this forwards. People with their passion, their dynamism, their energy, their dedication, their risk-taking. It's these people who are going to drive this region and our world forwards. And if we do all of these things, I'm convinced that we can help this place, Cairo, and the Mediterranean, and the world become a much better, much stronger place despite all the global challenges that we face today. But I didn't come to you today from Cairo, and I didn't come to you today from Silicon Valley. I came to you today from Beirut, from Lebanon, where I've been working on these projects for the last 7 years. Now, the idea that started this stuff, this whole process at the beginning, was both hypothetically thinking and then practically thinking, what could we do to help support the formation of 1 million social impact jobs all around the region within 10 years. But when I started talking to people about this back in 2006, 2007, a lot of people thought I was kind of nuts. I mean, who was I, just a couple years out of university, struggling to pay off my student loans, to be thinking about such an ambitious project in such a difficult region? And so I stopped talking to people about it. We never set it as a personal goal. We never set it as an organizational goal. But we kept building forwards, sometimes stumbling, sometimes failing, but always moving forwards, always building. And in the last 4 years, the co-founders of AltCity and myself and our team, we've organized or hosted over 1,000 events in Lebanon and throughout the region. We've worked with hundreds of partners. We've helped dozens of startups at the earliest stages of the startup formation. And we're now working on our most ambitious project yet, a startup bootcamp program to help support the formation of 100 startups per year over the next several years. And I think maybe it's time to start thinking again about that original idea that drove this forwards to begin with. But this is not a Lebanese challenge. This is a regional challenge. And it needs regional partnerships and regional solutions. And so if you're inspired by this and think that we collectively can come together and help our region become once again a hub of global innovation and entrepreneurship, then let's join forces. Crazy ideas are not just encouraged, they're critical. And actually, let's not wait at all. Let's start here, today, now. Everyone in your bags, you have a paper called a Dream Do canvas. I encourage you to pull it out of your bag and fill it out. Maybe there's something here today that you heard during the talks that inspired you. Or maybe there's an idea that you've been thinking about for weeks or months or maybe years that you've never gotten around to actually doing. You've never had the courage or the motivation to actually work on. And I encourage you to fill this out, and then during the break after this talk or at the end of the day, to share it with others. And then the challenge for the others is to listen and to think about how we can support those ideas. How can we give positive feedback? How can we help them? Maybe connect them to an investor or a co-founder or a partner, or maybe invest in them yourselves as a crowd investor, as an angel investor. Together, if you guys, by the way, have any of these ideas, I would love to hear them myself. Crazier the better. If you would like, you can actually write your email on this and then give it to any one of the volunteers here, and they're going to collect them and give them to me. And I'll send you an email, and we can discuss and see if there's some ways that we can collaborate. But I'm convinced that together, we can do amazing things. The crazy ideas, the passions, the determination of people who dream big, the stargazers and the dream doers, are not just to be encouraged, they are critical to our very survival. Thank you.